So,
Right.
how do you know when to leave a relationship when you're going through the spiritual awakening process? How to know when a relationship is truly harmful or you're just going through the awakening process, moving towards unconditional love, and this is just part of that process. So I have Artem here from True Freedom, and he's a spiritual teacher. He has a lot of experience with this. And so, Artem, thank you for being here with me to talk about
My
this.
pleasure.
You actually were so helpful to me when I was going through something like this. I had left an abusive relationship with a spiritual teacher and was so confused about it and really was second guessing myself and doubting whether I made the right decision to leave that relationship, whether I should have just stayed and tried to be more unconditionally loving. And so many doubts, really having a hard time forgiving myself because I was going through spiritual awakening and I could tell I was moving towards that unconditional love and I was just very confused with the mixed messages I was getting from new age spirituality and from my ex in particular. So, yeah, you were very helpful to me in getting clear on what was right for me. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. How do you know when a relationship is truly harmful to you, or it's just the awakening process and what that's like in a relationship with someone?
I'm very glad to hear that I was helpful to you for sure. Uh, it's a difficult question. It's actually a very difficult question because it's very confusing and it can be painful. It can be very, very painful in either way, right? Whether uh, it's a relationship that will be good for you ultimately, or whether it's a relationship that you're only in uh, because of your unresolved trauma. So some people use the term trauma bond,
I
right?
do.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a good term. It's somewhat unpleasant to hear, but a little bit pejorative, I would say. But it's quite accurate. So first of all, first let's speak about a relationship with a spiritual teacher or with someone who is enlightened or claims to be enlightened.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people who claim to be enlightened who are very abusive in relationships. Now, this is where it gets uh, difficult to differentiate. Yes, your pain is coming from the ego, sure, right? So all pain, all emotional pain, all pain in relationships are coming from the ego. This is true. But what tends to happen oftentimes in with people whose awakening is quite immature is that their ego or what's left of it, and oftentimes there is a lot left of it. I mean, strictly speaking, the self-realization, the finding consciousness, infinite awareness, oneness, things like that, that's not actually uh, the point where the ego ceases to be.
Mm.
That's the point where you disidentify with the ego.
Yeah.
Most of it is still present. You just don't identify with it. But there's a very strong illusion in people that their ego is no longer there
Mm-hmm.
because they read all the spiritual books. They listen to it. That's exactly how it feels like. They can relate to all of these descriptions. They say that's enlightenment. I don't have an ego. I can behave in any way I want. And I mean, it's true. Enlightenment is freedom, and it is behaving in any way you want. But it's unburdened by the pain,
Yeah.
right? So the behavior of a person who is completely free and can behave in any way they want, but with the mind unburdened by the pain entirely, or unburdened by the past, is very different from kind of the same all-allowing behavior where a lot of it is still coming from discomfort and pain, right? So
Yes.
as Muji once said, enlightenment is not freedom for the ego; it's freedom from the ego, right? But there usually is a period of time where the freedom for the ego is exercised. And sometimes it's exercised in extraordinarily ugly ways,
Yeah.
which can be emotionally painful for others. Which is not to say that it's not good for them, but this can get very confusing for a person who is also on the path and is trying to figure and they're trying to figure out themselves. So what tends to happen in such cases where the awakening is rather immature is that wherever there is any problem, right? Uh, this so-called enlightened person would say, "Ah, this is your ego. The problem
Yeah.
is coming from you. Everything is your ego." So there's a lot of blame,
Mhm.
and there is a lot of reactivity towards receiving blame,
Yeah.
right? So they would blame you for your for your struggles, for your pain, for your dysfunction, let's say, which is entirely normal. If you're undergoing a spiritual awakening, of course there will be a lot of pain, there will be a lot of confusion, there will be anger and stuff. So they will have a tendency to blame you for it and make it much more intense for you, right?
Yeah.
And they will also will have a tendency to not take any responsibility at all,
Yeah.
right? So for their behavior, which is sort of, I mean, from their perspective, it's understandable because they're kind of exercising the freedom for the ego, and they're in this language, and they are fed up with being told what's wrong with them, which is a universal experience for everyone. There is a sort of rebelliousness and callousness that is also coming out from that, and them being told, them being blamed or judged is
Mhm.
actually quite uncomfortable for them, but they don't want to own it. They would rather deny it and react from a painful place, and a sort of a, at this point, more or less imagined position of spiritual authority, and try to put it all on you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, living with an authentically enlightened person is also difficult. That's why it can be very confusing. So actually, living with a person who has less ego than you do will also be difficult. Because sometimes they would say something that is difficult for you to hear. Sometimes you will hate them. Sometimes you will feel lonely with them
Mhm.
because they don't react. Because they don't react emotionally in a way that you expect other people to. So to say, they're not subject to emotional manipulation, basically, because every ego is fundamentally very emotionally manipulative, because every ego tries to control other people's behavior. Like
Yes.
whether you're a good person or you are a bad person, like a bad person or a good person. So whether you're like positive and think that you're an example for others, or whether you are hurt and angry and you choose to influence other people with the display of pain. Uh, both of those are just coping mechanisms, basically. So both of those are ways that we unconsciously learn to influence other people to get what we want from them, and not to get hurt.
Mhm.
So whatever strategy you have, whatever strategy your ego has in dealing with other people and influencing them, uh, it will probably fail to work,
Yeah.
and that can arise feelings of loss of control, loss of love. There could be a lot of thoughts, "You don't love me anymore," and things like that, because ego also confuses love with getting what it wants, right? So love is when you do things for me that I want you to do things for me. That's
Mhm.
that's what love is, right?
Yes.
Or ego tends to confuse love with praise. Whatever I do, you should be on my side. Even if I'm wrong, you should be on my side, and you should praise me. That's what sometimes is perceived by love. So the feeling of confusion and hurt will arise in both cases. Now here's the thing. A a more or less mature, uh, maturely realized person does not have a yearning to teach you. He does not, he or she, doesn't matter. They do not have a yearning to help you. They do not have a yearning to point out your flaws.
Yeah.
They're perfectly okay with you as you are. They know that, like, maybe you are you still have a lot of ego. Maybe you're quite behind them in the spiritual development. Maybe you still have a lot of pain. All of this might be true, but they don't try to change you because they know that this journey is yours. Uh, they know that they can't rush it.
Mm.
They know that you are ultimately uh, at the driver's seat of your spiritual awakening, and they see themselves as a tool to you, as help to you, not as your boss
Mm.
or your spiritual owner. So there's a consequence of that, which manifests in their behavior. They might still hurt you, and they might still hurt you a lot, but they don't do it deliberately.
Right.
That's the thing. So if you're living with someone who who hurts you uh, in your perception, right? So in your perception, your pain is coming from their behavior. That's actually not true. Your pain is coming from your conditioning. Your pain is coming from you. But in your perception, your pain is coming from their behavior. And like for example, they say something like some remark or something, and if you tell that if you tell them honestly and sincerely that, hey, this was painful for me, could you please not do that again? And if it's very difficult for them to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll try not to,
Mhm.
but instead they say, oh no, this is all your ego, this is all your
Yeah.
ego, this is good for you, this is good for you, and then sort of double down, right? That's the difference. So they're trying to take ownership of you. They are trying to pull you. Uh, so it's not like it's damaging to you. I mean, in a certain extent, to a certain extent, they are right. To a
Yes.
certain extent, this is your pain and this is your ego, right? But what this does is it makes it very obvious that they want to push you. It makes it very obvious that they're not going to respect this request, and
Yeah.
it makes it very obvious that they are not accepting of you, of your current position on the spiritual journey as it is right now,
Mm.
right? So like so and a maturely realized person is ultimately flexible in their behavior. It's as easy for them to apologize and try not to do it as it is to keep doing it,
Yeah.
right? They're not sort of slanted towards the continuous teaching mode.
Yeah.
It's very easy for them to be just ordinary people and use ordinary language and just have an ordinary conversation. And another thing is that a deeply realized, a deeply mature person uh, uh, doesn't try to point out ignorance in you, but acknowledges and rewards any uh, act of sincerity and honesty, because that's what the journey is about,
Yeah.
right? Not like like for as long as you have an ego, you're not going to be completely ultimately honest, because ego is very deceptive and it's based on self-deception. It's not a possibility for you to be completely ultimately honest, right? So there will be self-deception, and there will be some contradictions, and there will be some hiding, of course, right?
Right.
But if uh, if whenever they see that, they want to point it instead of rewarding any step
Yes.
towards openness. You see, that's not a healthy mode of teaching. So if you say, hey, you know, let me be honest with you. This behavior really hurts my feelings. Can you try not to do it again? And they say, oh, well, that's great. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know,
Yeah.
but now I do. And I will try to do my best not to do that again. That's an open, sincere conversation, which is simultaneously is honoring your current position on the spiritual path, even though you will have to deal with this pain later. But it's at the same time rewarding this step that you took towards honesty and sincerity, because instead of blaming it on them, you being honest, you taking responsibility for your feelings, and he meets you, or she meets you.
Yeah.
With someone who I would describe as an enlightened ego, who basically is just doing everything that they can so that you have this moment of realization. They just don't care about you at all.
Yeah.
What they only yearn to see is then you're to see like, oh, I realize I'm not my ego. Oh wow, such bliss. And they kind of they had this experience and they think that they take a hammer and they will just uh, hammer you so that you have this experience. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to see. It's almost impossible to meet them. It's almost impossible for them to meet you. Like there's always this undergoing conflict. So it's like with them, for as long as you're not with them, for as long as you're not realized what they have realized, they're always in sort of a conflict with you.
Yes.
It feels like it.
Yes.
You see, but with an authentic enlightened person, it doesn't feel like it. They can be ordinary. They can just live an ordinary life with you. You see.
This is
So
so
there are
important. Yeah.
what
Thank you. No, I was gonna
do
say
you
this is
recognize some of that? But because I haven't even spoken to your ex and I don't know much about it, but do you recognize some of
oh
the things? Okay.
yes, and that's why I feel like it's so important to have this discussion because there's a lot of what I call fake gurus out
Yes.
there who have either had a
Tremendous
glimpse
amount.
of
Most of them
awakening.
actually.
Yes, exactly. Or
Yes.
who maybe are self-realized, enlightened. I don't know. I don't know what terms people are using these days,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
they've had that experience, but then the ego is still there, and
Yes.
they are very actually harmful. And that's what that was my experience. I was very misled by this person. He actually was not leading me
Yes.
towards more honesty. I was just getting more defensive and more confused, and
And
so
it will, well, of course, right? Because if a teacher uh, inflicts more pain on you than you're ready for,
yeah,
then they're doing a disservice to you. Then your tendency will be to close up. Your tendency will be to go back into your shell, to run away from it.
yeah,
You see, it's a very gentle process. So just like opening up in awareness, just like learning to love yourself, is a gentle process, even though it's extraordinarily painful.
yeah,
But it is still gentle, right? It cannot be rushed, right? So a good teacher will not try to inflict more sort of truth on you, which is the same as pain, because truth is very painful. But they will not try to inflict truth on you to
right.
sort of force it on you more than you're ready. So they will meet you where you are. But of course, it will be hard for you to meet them where they are. So there will be some, but they will try to meet you where they are, where you are. They're not going to try to push you.
Right.
Like if you don't feel accepted, if you feel constantly judged, right? And
Yes.
sometimes you will feel judged even in the presence of an enlightened person who doesn't judge you at all, right? Because the mind does that, right? So there could be just a complete silence and nothing at all, and you
Right.
will feel you will feel. But if it's obvious on the level of behavior that there is a continuous judgment and pointing out of flaws in
Hmm.
you, right? And
Yeah.
you kind of don't even have the space to be honest. Like you try to be honest, you try to be sincere with regards to the difficult experience that you're going through, and back you receive even more judgments and more accusations and more. Then that's not authentic, deep realization yet on behalf of this person.
No, and that was my experience. And actually it was quite striking to experience you as a teacher and just interact with you after being with him. And the biggest difference I noticed is you were able to meet me. You were able to offer that acceptance and unconditional love, whereas my ex, not even close, not even close. I mean, he had moments of that, but not vast difference.
Yeah, it just has to do with the with continued practice in the dissolution of the ego. Because in the beginning, I had the same tendencies.
Yeah.
So I did quite a lot of shit like that with many people, and the best, and they were the best teachers to me in a lot of ways when they rejected me or responded harshly to me or stopped communicating with me. So it's a natural tendency, right? So there is no such thing as uh, going from ego to no ego. It never happens.
Mm-mm.
You go from ego to spiritual ego first,
Yes,
to
I went through
spiritual
that.
or
Yeah.
enlightened ego, and
Yeah.
then like there's spiritual ego, there's enlightened ego. Like the really like deep authentic no ego is much deeper than most people realize, and the ego is also very deceptive. The ego always wants to convince you that it's not present anymore.
Yeah.
Always, because the very admission that it still is, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
Osho once said, "But the mind that is not still is." You know, he says just such things in such weird language. But basically, even if you feel like your awareness and completely beyond the mind, there most likely is still a lot of ego in the mind, and it manifests itself in this kind of ugly ways. The other tendency that you will notice if you're living with, if you're undergoing through with a spiritual awakening, and you are living with a person who is authentically much deeper realized than yours, is that you will notice that you will try to put restrictions on their freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about, we can have another conversation about that, but I'm not talking about like freedom as in, seeing or sleeping with other people. I
Right.
mean, people should have open conversations about that and whether it's acceptable to you or not acceptable to you and things like that. But I'm talking about just sort of freedom in day-to-day lives, So you will feel uh, angry with them or judgmental of them when they don't do things the way you want to do. So the most important thing is, even if you verbalize that, uh, whether aggressively or passively aggressively and things like that, is how they react to that, right? So if they react very aggressively, if they react in a very conflict rich manner,
Mm.
then it's also probably coming from their pain. So uh, uh, don't let them, don't let anyone, not even like a teacher, don't let anyone convince you that you are the source of their problems.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what the ego is actually. So ego is uh, when we get convinced. Uh, when we were very, very little, that we get convinced that there is something wrong with us, that we're a burden to our parents, for example, that we're a burden to society, that we are a problem. So someone who's trying to convince you that you are a problem cannot be doing that to free you from the ego. There could be some uh, benefit of value in such behavior because it exposes your own pain.
Right.
Uh, but if you're ready for that, you will probably already have a very good intuition about what I'm what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have a very good intuition about what I'm saying, and they actually believe it. And in this way, it makes them more confused. So they basically continue to exist in an abusive relationship, even though so they continue to live against themselves. So it's
Right.
very easy to fall prey to a kind of fake guru that will tell you that they're leading you to freedom, but actually they're just as exploitative of you as any ego is, and they will kind of try to convince you that you are the source of their problems. So you're not the source of anyone's problems. Now the other side of that is that uh, even is that a deeply realized person would still not necessarily succumb to your demands. They might, if for temporarily, if it's easier for you, out of their love for you, because they want to be with you, but they don't have to,
Mm.
right? So they might still live their life the way that they want, not the way that you want them to live their lives. But they're not going to be angry about it. They're not going to be bitter about it. They're not going to point fingers at you, and they're not going to make you feel bad about, because they know that you already feel bad enough.
Yeah.
By trying to take ownership of them, you already feel bad enough. You do this out of insecurity. They're not going to make you feel even worse. Just they already know that the very fact of them not succumbing to your demands is going to make you feel worse already. Why would they add on top of that?
Right.
You see, so it makes kind of perfect sense to clear mind, but in the state of this delusion of enlightenment, it feels to them, it feels like you are, you know, attacking their freedom, and you must get what you deserve, But they
Yeah.
forget that authentic freedom cannot be attacked by anyone, you know. So unfortunately, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. Uh, the best advice I can give is that trust your intuition. If something feels really, really off, it probably is. And if they don't give you space, especially if they don't give you space to be hurt, if they don't give you space to be sad, it doesn't mean that with anger and hatred, it's a little bit different. I
Hmm.
mean, a deeply realized person would also give you plenty of space to be hateful and angry towards them without retaliating.
Right.
But also, being emotionally abusive is to them is also oftentimes not very good for you. So they might sort of carefully, gently put your attentions put your attention back on yourself.
Mm.
But if they don't give you space to be sad, if they don't give you space to cry, if they don't give you space to be in a bad mood, you know, then this is not, and let's say, an enlightened relationship. You see?
Yeah. I wish I knew all this before I got into that relationship, but yeah, I was very confused, and you walking me through just kind of what you did here was just huge for me. So healing, because yeah, mostly really like what I'm hearing you say, a big difference is when you're in pain, a genuinely enlightened partner, person, teacher would not inflict more pain onto you.
Yes, yes, that's the crux of what I'm saying. That's actually a great summary. Thank you. Yes, and a genuinely enlightened person would not add more on to your pain when you already are in pain.
Yes. And that was what I did not experience in that abusive relationship. I was in pain, more was coming. It was more blame, it was more my fault. Yes. So, very, very painful relationship. Ultimately, it did bring up my pain in this awakening process, actually pushed me quite deep. Uh, wasn't looking for that, but certainly helped me come out of my spiritual ego for sure. But yeah, it was very confusing.
So that is actually, it's a very good thing that you mentioned it, because that
Yeah.
this actually gives us a segue to the next part of it,
Yeah.
uh, of the question, because a lot of the same dynamics will be present. Like, let's say if you just two people uh, uh, on the path of the spiritual awakening, not like one claims to be a teacher, and you live in with them, or claims to be enlightened, but you both are. I mean, at a certain point of time, probably you will both claim spiritual superiority over each other. That's entirely normal. But if you're both going there, then a lot of dynamics will be present, also, right? Because it's actually quite natural for the ego to try to inflict pain upon another person who's already in pain, because the pain of the other person is uncomfortable for the ego.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you say something and then the other person is feeling like, let's say you say something and the other person begins to cry.
Mm.
Now, most likely you're going to experience guilt. You don't want to see that. So you will try to blame them for your tears, for
Yeah.
their tears. Like, oh, stop crying, you see, so you're too sensitive, stuff. This is a self-protective reaction.
Right.
It's the same reason why parents don't like seeing their children cry. And that's the same dynamic. That's the same mechanism which leads to tremendous suppression, right? So parents forbid children free expression because it's uncomfortable for them.
Mhm.
You see, so it's very selfish in its core, but it's going to be present from both sides. If you and in other examples, not just with tears,
Right.
but in all sorts of examples. So so it's also going to be difficult. Now, at times, it will feel like it is abusive, definitely. So you will see that the other person is abusive. You will see that you are also abusive, similarly, because every ego fundamentally is abusive and every ego fundamentally is narcissistic. It's just a question of how much, right? So we in a society we kind of have a standard that, I mean, this amount of abuse and narcissism is okay, that we would call it healthy, right? And then when it goes over a certain threshold, then we say, okay, so this is clinical narcissism, or like
Yep.
blah blah blah. But in reality, there is it's just a matter of amount, and most people have a tremendous amount of, like, I personally had a tremendous amount of narcissism, and I would never, under no circumstances, be diagnosed as a narcissist by any psychologist. I mean, I worked with a lot of psychologists, but still, from the perspective of enlightenment, I was total narcissist, and never ego is. So, so of course there will be this dynamic, and uh, and at times it will be similar, and painful and difficult. So so uh, so to decide of, whether to leave the relationship or not can still be tricky, because at a certain time it will certainly feel like, and it's true, that staying in a relationship will make the unfolding more painful and more intense
Right.
than being alone, right? So since I often say that the spiritual unfolding is the direction towards discomfort, it's kind of good for you if you can take it.
Mhm.
But the big question that you have to answer uh, is there authentic, deep love between you, right? So do you authentically want this person to be happy?
Mhm.
Do you authentically care for this person's well-being? Do you enjoy this person, or is this person is just a safety thing for you? You just cling to them because you are scared to leave, right? Is it more difficult to leave, or is it more difficult to stay?
Yes.
And
Yes.
usually, if it's more difficult to stay, then there is authentic love, and just the journey is difficult. But if it's more difficult to leave, then you're probably in an abusive relationship, because, and that's exactly why you are in an abusive relationship, because it's much more difficult for you to leave than to stay, and the abuser knows it,
Hmm.
well, consciously or unconsciously.
Right.
But they feel it. They feel that it is allowed. They feel that they can,
That's
right?
the
They
power
tested it
dynamic. Yeah.
many times,
Yeah.
right? So if there's a mutual commitment towards growth, if there's a mutual commitment towards deepening the realization, towards growing together in love, if there's mutual love, then it's best to stay, even if it's very, very difficult. And usually, if it is present, then even if you fight, even if it's very difficult, then after some time you still have a sincere, open, heartful conversation. You make up, you cry your tears, you say your apologies, you forgive each other, and if this dynamic continues and you grow and evolve and learn from every such episode, and you learn how your childhood traumas provoked this episode, and kind of connected to their childhood traumas, and you played out this not very healthy roles of, let's say, an accuser and a person who always guilty, and or kind of, and you can also honestly and consciously talk about it, and hug and forgive each other and cry about it, then I
Yeah.
would say this is wonderful, because the growing together in love can be the most intense and the most productive experience in the spiritual path.
Thank you for that. Because yes, I'm seeing that in my life now. The difference now being in a relationship like that where we are both committed to the growth process and it's really hard at times, but ultimately we do always have those talks and like you said, apologize, forgive each
Yes,
other, come to mutual understanding. And now I can see the difference between what I had before, which none of that was there. There was no willingness to really grow, take accountability. It's striking the difference.
yes, yes, yes. And by the way, just for the viewers, maybe I wanted to say that is great that you can recognize the difference, because I wanted to mention that I do not know the dynamics of your current relationship with your partner,
Right.
and I didn't know, and I still don't know much about what happened with your ex. So I am speaking in general terms, and the fact that you recognize it so easily,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It means that that is that is quite deeply true.
It's thank you for saying that. It is very different. And I can tell that my intuition, like there's a lot of times where I just want to run away because it's
Of
hard. My
course, yes,
my
yes,
intuition says,
yes,
no, no, just stay. Let's see what happens.
yes,
Whereas before, my intuition was telling me, no, this is not right. There's something very off here.
right,
It was hard.
right,
I didn't want to follow it back then
yes,
until I was ready to
yes.
leave. But yeah,
And also, by the way, the point that I oftentimes repeat again and again is that the intuition is the most peculiar thing. It
yeah,
doesn't sway momentarily as emotions do from a
no,
day to day. It's stubborn.
that's what
It
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 feels
it,
like. Yeah,
it only grows. So you see, so if it's like your intuition that you should leave, that's what's best for you.
yeah,
Will only grow with every like passing month. It's going to be stubbornly there. And
yes.
it's the same thing with the intuition that you're going to stay. It's like there will be difficult moments, there will be tremendously difficult moments, but when they're over, the intuition that this partner is good for you, and you both growing and developing and loving, and you should stay, will only grow.
That's been my experience. Thank you for validating that. Yeah.